From the time they're knee-high to a grasshopper, most men are taught to admire a very specific kind of strength. The strength of a rock, the strength of an oak tree, the quiet, unyielding strength that takes everything on the chin without so much as a peep. The man who doesn't cry, doesn't show weakness, figures things out himself. Head held high. We're taught to see emotion as the polar opposite of strength. A vulnerability to be hidden, managed, suppressed at all costs. But here's the rub, the paradox I want to dig into with you today. If this model of strength is so darn effective, why are the rates of depression, anxiety, and loneliness among men so shockingly high? If being an unshakable rock is the way, why are so many of those rocks crumbling on the inside? In silence. It seems the very armor we built to protect ourselves from the world has become our prison. The strength that's supposed to connect us and make us better leaders, fathers, and partners is often the very thing that isolates us, keeps us from asking for help, and makes us strangers to the people we love most and especially to ourselves. What if our whole definition of strength is just plain wrong? What if what we've learned to see as weakness is actually the source of the most authentic power a man can have? To really get into this paradox, let's pit these two contenders against each other like they're stepping into a boxing ring. In one corner, we have the long reigning champ, the rock-solid code. In the other, the up-and-coming challenger, the code of courage. The rock-solid code is what most of us were raised on. Its philosophy is simple. Strength is control. Emotions are volatile data that need to be analyzed, filtered, and, more often than not, suppressed. Its primary motivation is stability and protection. It believes that by not showing weakness, it protects itself and those it loves from the pain and uncertainty of the world. Its biggest fear is losing control, being seen as incapable, or as a burden. For it, asking for help isn't an option, it's an admission of defeat. In the other corner, we've got the code of courage. Its philosophy is radically different. Strength is authenticity. Emotions aren't weaknesses, they're information. They're the language of the human experience. Its primary motivation is connection and growth. It believes that true strength doesn't come from never falling, but from the courage to show up, to admit when you don't know, to ask for help, and to connect with others on a human level. Its biggest fear isn't pain, but a life that's shallow, isolated, and inauthentic. What makes this showdown so fascinating is that both codes are born from a noble intention, the desire to be a good man, a strong man. The rock-solid code tries to achieve this through invulnerability, the code of courage through vulnerability. But where did the first code even come from? Why has it been the dominant model for so long? The answer lies in our history and our biology. The rock-solid code wasn't some random invention. It was forged over millennia by a brutal need for survival. Think about our ancestors. In a world filled with predators, scarcity, and constant danger, the ability to suppress fear, pain, and uncertainty wasn't a dysfunction, it was a competitive advantage. The man who could hunt even when hungry, fight even when afraid, and lead his tribe without showing hesitation was the one who survived and passed on his genes. Emotional suppression was a survival tool. Fast forward through history, and societies were built on that same foundation. From the Roman legions to the factories of the Industrial Revolution, the world needed men who were pillars, who could bear the weight of structures without collapsing. Work was physical, dangerous, and demanded emotional toughness. The man who cried wasn't just seen as weak. He was seen as a threat to the stability of the family, the community, the nation. The problem, and this is the whole ballgame, is that this software, which was so useful for so long, has become obsolete. The world has changed. Most of us aren't battling lions anymore, but deadlines, emails, and the complexities of modern relationships. Today's battles don't require physical toughness, but psychological flexibility, emotional intelligence, and the ability to collaborate. The armor that protected us in the jungle and on the battlefield now just keeps us from hugging our kids, truly connecting with our partners, and admitting to ourselves that sometimes we're just not okay. The rock-solid code isn't bad, it's just old, and it's desperately in need of an upgrade. If the rock-solid code is outdated software that no longer serves us in today's world, what's the upgrade? The solution isn't simply erasing the old code and forcing a change. The solution is integration. This is where the code of courage comes into play, not as an enemy of the rock, but as its evolution. The liberating synthesis is the understanding that true strength isn't the absence of emotion, but the courage to feel it and move through it. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the measure of our courage. It takes a hell of a lot more strength to say, "I don't know," "I need help," or "I'm afraid," than to build a wall of silence. Think about it. A rock doesn't grow, doesn't adapt, doesn't connect. It just exists, resisting until it eventually cracks under pressure. An oak tree, on the other hand, is strong precisely because it's flexible. It bends with the wind. Its roots dig deeper for sustenance, and it's connected to the entire forest. The code of courage invites us to be more like the oak and less like the rock. This truce between the two codes means we don't have to abandon our ability to be pillars, to be stable and protective. But we integrate into that the permission to be human, the permission to share the load instead of carrying it alone, the permission to connect through our imperfections, not despite them. Strength ceases to be an armor that isolates us and becomes a bridge that connects us. Theory is powerful, but real change happens in practice. So how do we start exercising the code of courage without feeling completely exposed and in danger? The answer lies in a small exercise I like to call the minimum risk experiment. The idea isn't to share your deepest, darkest secret with a total stranger. The idea is to take one step at a time. The experiment works like this. During the next week, choose one person in your life whom you trust. It could be your partner, a good friend, a sibling. And your only task is to share with that person something a little more vulnerable than usual. It doesn't have to be some huge drama. It could be something as simple as when that person asks, "How's it going?" Instead of the automatic, "Fine, same old," you try something like, "To be honest, today was rough. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed." Or admitting you don't know the answer to something, instead of pretending you do. Or sharing a small insecurity or a small fear. The goal of this experiment isn't to solve the problem. The goal is to test the waters. It's to observe what happens when you lower your armor, even if it's just an inch. What you'll probably find is that the world doesn't end. On the contrary, what you'll probably find on the other side isn't judgment, but connection. It's a small act of courage that starts to rewrite your internal software, showing you that vulnerability doesn't lead to rejection, but to recognition and intimacy. This journey to redefine strength is one of the most important jobs a man can do for himself and for those he loves. And if you feel like you want to dive deeper into this code of courage, there's a book that is, in my opinion, the essential compass for this new territory. The book is Daring Greatly by researcher Brené Brown. If our conversation today was the doorway to understanding vulnerability, Brené's book is the complete map of the terrain. She spent 2 decades studying courage, shame, and empathy. And what she teaches us is that vulnerability isn't a choice, it's a constant. The only choice we have is how to respond to it. It's a read that can literally change the way you live and relate. And speaking of relating, I'd love for this conversation to continue in the comments. The question I leave for our community is, what is the small, minimum risk experiment that you commit to trying this week? What small vulnerability are you going to allow yourself to share? Reading your experiences is what makes this space so powerful. If you value these investigations and want them to continue, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you want to directly support the production of more videos like this, think about becoming a member. And of course, our final reminder. This is a philosophical and psychological exploration. If the issues we talked about today touch on deep pain, or if you feel your mental health needs support, please seek the help of a qualified professional. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, it's the greatest sign of strength. Thanks for hanging out. The heaviest armor a man can carry is the weight of what he doesn't say. May we have the courage to put it down.